Hi everybody, in this video we're going to be annotating the rest of the Odyssey. So we're at where it says Book 22, Death at the Great Hall. So as I read through this, I'm going to highlight some stuff and you guys are going to highlight your papers as we go through it. Alright, so remember we just finished where he managed to shoot the bowstring through. She said she would marry whoever won the competition, and he shot his, he strung the bow, and then he shot it through all of those 12 axe heads, so he was the winner. Alright, so now showing off his rags, the wiliest fighter of the islands leapt and stood on the broad doorsill, his own bow in his hand. He poured out at his feet a rain of arrows from the quiver and spoke to the crowd. So who is the wiliest fighter of the islands? That's going to be Odysseus. So much for that, your clean-cut game is over. Now watch me hit a target that no man has hit before. If I can make this shot, help me, Apollo. Alright, so right here we're supposed to identify the metaphor in line 3. So 1, 2, 3. He poured out at his feet a rain of arrows from the quiver and spoke to the crowd. So they're saying that arrows are like raindrops. That's not on your questions, but that's the metaphor. Note that Odysseus calls upon the help of the god Apollo, who was, among other things, the supporter and protector of archers. The bow is his sacred weapon. So calling the gods helping is one of the things that makes something an epic. Alright, he drew in his fist the cruel head of an arrow for Antinous, just as the young man leaned to lift his beautiful drinking cup, embossed, two-handled, golden. The cup was in his fingers, the wine was even at his lips. And did he dream of death? How could he? In that revelry, amid his throng of friends, who would imagine a single foe, though a strong foe indeed, could dare to bring death's pain on him and darkness to his eyes? Alright, revelry just means noisy merry-making, like a party. Odysseus' arrow hit him under the chin and punched up to the feathers through his throat. Backwards and down he went, letting the wine cup fall from his shocked hand. Like pipes, his nostrils jetted crimson runnels, a river of mortal red, and one last kick upset his table, knocking the bread and meat to soak in dusty blood. All right, so who did he kill first? Which of the suitors did he kill first? And that is going to be Antinous. I'm probably not saying that right. I'm terrible with these pronunciations. So that's one of your questions. Who did he kill first? How did the other suitors respond to this act? So that's what we're looking for. Now, as they craned to see their champion where he lay, the suitors jostled in uproar down the hall, everyone on his feet. Wildly they turned and scanned the walls in the long room for arms, but not a shield, not a good ashen spear was there for a man to take and throw. All they could do was yell in outrage at Odysseus. Alright, so why wasn't there any shields? Because he had had his son Telemachus lock all the weapons away. Why did Odysseus kill him first? Why does he do it in such a sudden, terrible way to basically shock everybody? I mean, he killed him first because he was the leader. How did they react? This is one of your questions. So they all jumped up and they turned and looked for weapons. Everyone on his feet turned and scanned the walls for arms. So got up and looked for weapons. So that's one of your questions. Earlier in preparation for this confrontation, Odysseus and Telemachus removed all the weapons and shields that were hanging on the walls, so there was no weapons for them. Foul to shoot a man. That was your last shot. Your own throat will be slit for this. Our finest lad is down. You killed the best on Ithaca. Buzzards will tear your eyes out. So they're all mad and they're yelling at him. For they imagined, as they wished, that it was a wild shot, an unintended killing. Fools not to comprehend they were already in the grip of death. So they thought that he had just accidentally shot him. But glaring under his bow, Odysseus answered, "You yellow dogs, you thought I'd never make it home from the land of Troy. You took my house to plunder, twisted my maids to serve your beds. You dared to bid for my wife while I was still alive. Contempt was all you had for the gods who rule wide heaven. Contempt for what men say of you hereafter. Your last hour has come. You die in blood." All right, so this part says we want to paraphrase what Odysseus' speech in these lines. What reason does he give for killing the suitors? That's not one of your questions on the quiz, but he's saying that he's killing them because they took his house to plunder. Actually, I'm going to do that with a highlighter. So this, and then took his house to plunder, like it took all his stuff, took his maids, bid for my wife, so tried to get his wife to marry him while he was still alive, had contempt for the gods, and for what people say of them afterwards. As they all took this in, sickly green fear pulled at their entrails, and their eyes flickered, looking for some hatch or hideaway from death. Eurymachus alone could speak. He said, "If you are Odysseus of Ithaca come back, all that you say these men have done is true. Rash actions, many here, more in the countryside. But here he lies, the man who caused them all." So basically he's saying, yes, they've done all the stuff that you've said, but you killed the one who caused it all, right? Antinous was the ringleader. He whipped us on to do these things. He cared less for a marriage than for the power Cronion has denied him as king of Ithaca. For that, he tried to trap your son and would have killed him. He is dead now and has his portion. Spare your own people. As for ourselves, we'll make restitution of wine and meat consumed, and add, each one, a tithe of 20 oxen with gifts of bronze and gold to warm your heart. Meanwhile, we cannot blame you for your anger. So he's saying it's not our fault. Don't kill all of your people. It was just the guy you already killed was the ringleader. All right, and here restitution. That's one of your vocabulary words. It means making good for loss or damage. So like if you get into a car accident and you damage someone else's car, you crash into them, you have to make restitution. Basically, you have to pay for their car. A tithe is a payment. So tithe and restitution. Right there. All right, so the next question says, what did Eurymachus offer to Odysseus? So he offers to make restitution of wine and meat consumed, so give them back all the wine and the meat that they ate while they were there, and add each one a tithe of 20 oxen with gifts of bronze and gold to warm your heart. So they're gonna pay back all the stuff that they ate. So give back all food and wine and give him gold and bronze. What is his motivation in these lines? What is his strategy for achieving his goal? So his motivation, why is he saying he'll give him all that? Right? Because he doesn't want to die. Because he doesn't want Odysseus to kill him. What is his strategy for achieving that goal? He's trying to bribe him. Like, give him a bunch of gifts. Odysseus growled under his black brows and said, "Not for the whole treasure of your fathers, all you enjoy, lands, flocks, or any gold, put up by others, would I hold my hand." So no matter what you give me, no matter, you could offer me all the gold in the world, that's not going to stop me. So hold my hand, stop me. There will be killing till the score is paid. You forced yourselves upon this house. Fight your way out, or run for it, if you think you'll escape death. I doubt one man of you skins by. Why do you think Odysseus rejects um, Eurymachus's explanation and offer of restitution? Well, he was so mad that he didn't care about that, and also he saw how everybody was acting, so he knew that this was just him trying to weasel his way out. All right. They fell, their knees fell, and their hearts, but heard Eurymachus for the last time rallying them. So now he's telling them to fight. Friends, he said, the man is implacable. That means impossible to soothe, unforgiving. Now that he's got his hand on bow and quiver, he'll shoot from the big doorstone there until he kills us to the last man. Fight, I say. Let's remember the joy of it. Swords out. Hold up your tables to deflect the arrows. So, like, basically use your tables as shields. After me, everyone. Rush him where he stands. If we can budge him from the door, if we can pass into the town, we'll call out men to chase him. This fellow with his bow will shoot no more. All right. He drew his own sword as he spoke, a broadsword of fine bronze, honed like a razor on the edge. Then, crying hoarse and loud, he hurled himself at Odysseus. But the kingly man let fly an arrow. Kingly man, that's going to be Odysseus. So Odysseus shoots him with an arrow at an instant, and the quivering feathered butt sprang to the nipple of the breast as the barb struck his liver. So basically hit him. The bright broadsword clanged down. He lurched and fell aside, pitching across his table. His cup, his bread and meat were spilt and scattered far and wide, and his head slammed on the ground. Revulsion, anguish in his heart, with both feet kicking out. He downed his chair while the shrouding wave of mist closed on his eyes. So basically, he died. Here's another vocabulary word, revulsion, which means a sudden feeling of disgust or loathing. Amphinomus now came running at Odysseus, broadsword naked in his hand. He thought to make the great soldier give way at the door, but with a spear throw from behind, Telemachus, that's his son, that's Odysseus' son, hit him between the shoulders, and the lance head drove clear through his chest. He left his feet and fell forward, thudding forehead against the ground. So Telemachus kills him. Telemachus proves to be a valuable help to his father. Telemachus swerved around him, leaving the long dark spear planted in Amphinomus. If he paused to yank it out, someone might jump him from behind or cut him down with a sword. So he didn't stop at the moment he bent over. So he ran from the tables to his father's side and halted, panting, saying, Father, let me bring you a shield and spear, a pair of spears, a helmet. I can arm on the run myself. I'll give outfits to Eumaeus and this cowherd. Better to have equipment. And remember, those were his faithful servants. Remember the ones that he tested by asking him what would you do when he was still in disguise. All right. Said Odysseus, Run then, while I hold them off with arrows, as long as the arrows last. When all are gone, if I am alone, they can dislodge me. So basically he's saying, hurry up, because if I run out of arrows, then they'll be able to push me out of the way. Quick, upon his father's word, Telemachus ran to the room where the spears and armor lay. He caught up 4 light shields, 4 pairs of spears, 4 helmets of war, high plumed with flowing manes, and ran back, loaded down, to his father's side. He was the first to pull a helmet on and slide his bare arm in a buckler strap. The servants armed themselves, and all 3 took their stand beside the master of battle. So they all got armed, and then they're standing next to Odysseus. While he had arrows, he aimed and shot, and every shot brought down one of his huddling enemies. But when all barbs had flown from the bowman's fist, ran out of arrows, basically is what that means. He leaned his bow in the bright entryway beside the door, and armed, a four-ply shield hard on his shoulder, and a crested helmet, horse-tailed, nodding stormy upon his head. Then he took his tough and bronze-shod spears. So now he's arming himself with spears and armor. The suitors make various unsuccessful attempts to expel Odysseus from his post at the door. Athena urges Odysseus on to battle, yet holds back her fullest aid, waiting for Odysseus and Telemachus to prove themselves. 6 of the suitors attempt an attack on Odysseus, but Athena deflects their arrows. Odysseus and his men seize this opportunity to launch their own attack, and the suitors begin to fall. At last, Athena's presence becomes known to all, as the shape of her shield becomes visible above the hall. The suitors recognize the intervention of the gods on Odysseus' behalf, are frantic to escape, but to no avail. Odysseus and his men are compared to falcons who show no mercy on the flocks of birds they pursue and capture. Soon the room is reeking with blood. Thus, the battle with the suitors comes to an end, and Odysseus prepares himself to meet Penelope. Okay, so the next question you've got is, why were the suitors unable to defend themselves? The gods intervene to help Odysseus. Right? So no matter they couldn't defend themselves because she would shield him from Athena would shield him from the arrows. All right. Book 23, The Trunk of the Old Olive Tree. Great-hearted Odysseus, home at last, was being bathed now by Eurynome, a female servant. I think she was like a nurse, like an old lady, and rubbed with golden oil and clothed again in a fresh tunic and a cloak. Athena lent him beauty, head to foot. She made him taller and massive, too, with crisping hair and curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red gold. Think of gold infused on silver by a craftsman whose fine art Hephaestus, who is the god of metalworking, taught him. Or Athena, one whose work moves to delight, just as she lavished beauty over Odysseus' head and shoulders. He sat then in the same chair by the pillar, facing his silent wife, and said, okay, so what did Athena give to Odysseus? She lavished beauty over Odysseus, so she made him look young, strong, handsome. Usually we don't think of beauty when we're talking about a man, but here that's what she's saying. All right. So then he says to his wife, so he's sitting there staring at his wife, and she's staring at him, not saying anything. Strange woman, the immortals of Olympus made you hard, harder than any. Who else in the world would keep aloof? Aloof means distant or remote, standoffish. So who else in the world would keep aloof as you do from your husband if he returned to her from years of trouble, cast on his own land in the 20th year? So he's home after 20 years and she's not speaking to him. Nurse, make up a bed for me to sleep on. Her heart is iron in her breast. Penelope spoke to Odysseus now. She said, Strange man, if you are, and then she trailed off. This is no pride on my part, nor scorn for you, not even wonder merely. I know so well how he appeared boarding the ship for Troy, but all the same. So she knows how her husband looked when he got on the ship for Troy, but she's not sure that this is her husband. So then she says to the nurse, servant, whatever she is, make up his bed for him. Place it outside the bedchamber my lord built with his own hands. Pile the big bed with fleece rugs and sheets of purest linen. So she's telling her to move his bed outside his bedroom. All right. With this, she tried him to the breaking point, right? So she is testing him. And he turned on her in a flash, raging, Woman, by Heaven, you've stung me now. Who dared to move my bed? No builder had the skill for that, unless a god came down to turn the trick. No mortal in his best days could budge it with the crowbar. There is our pact and pledge, our secret sign, built into that bed, my handiwork and no one else's. An old trunk of an olive tree grew like a pillar on the building plot, and I laid out our bedroom round that tree, lined up the stone walls, built the walls and the roof, gave it a doorway and smooth fitting doors. Then I lopped off the silvery leaves and branches, hewed and shaped that stump from the roots up into a bedpost. Right, so the stump is the bedpost of the bed. Drilled it, let it serve as a model for the rest. I planed them all, inlaid them with silver, gold, and ivory, and stretched a bed between, a pliant web of oxide, thong-dyed crimson. There's our sign. I know no more. Could someone else's hand have sawn that trunk and dragged the frame away? All right, so he's saying that no one could move the bed. The bed was made out of a tree trunk that came up through the floor. It was made, let's say, with as a bedpost. All right. Their secret. As she heard it told, her knees grew tremulous. Tremulous is trembling. And weak. Her heart failed her. With eyes brimming tears, she ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck and kissed him, murmuring, "Do not rage at me, Odysseus. No one ever matched your caution. Think what difficulty the gods gave. They denied us life together in our prime and flowering years, kept us from crossing into age together. Forgive me. Don't be angry. I could not welcome you with love on sight. I armed myself long ago against the frauds of men." So she thought that he might be an impostor. She had to make sure that it was him. Impostors who might come, and all those many whose underhanded ways bring evil on. Helen of Argos, remember that is Helen of Troy. Helen that went to Troy, right? Troy, Paris, remember Paris took her away. Daughter of Zeus and Leda, would she have joined the stranger? That would have been Paris. Remember from the story about the Trojan War? Lain with him if she had known her destiny. So like she's saying, if she had known what was going to happen, would she have actually done that? Known the Achaeans in arms would bring her back to her own country. Surely a goddess moved her to adultery, her blood unchilled by war and evil comings. The years, the desolation, ours too. Desolation is lonely, grief, and misery. So they're saying that she's saying that if she had known that, she wouldn't have done it. She wouldn't have ran off with Paris. It must have been a god that had tricked her. But here and now, what sign could be so clear as this of our own bed? No other man has ever laid eyes on it. Only my own slave, Actorus, that my father sent with me as a gift. She kept our door. You make my stiff heart know that I am yours. All right, so let's go over some of these questions real quick. Why did Penelope test Odysseus? Because she tests him because she doesn't want to get tricked by men or gods. Right? So she isn't sure that it's him. She wants to make sure that it's him and not someone else, an imposter. What does Athena lavish on Odysseus? That's back up here, and that was beauty. Where was that? That was way back up here. She lavished beauty on Odysseus. Why did Penelope tell the servant? What did Penelope tell the servant to do in order to test Odysseus? To move his bed outside his bedroom. Why, according to Odysseus, was this impossible? The bed could not be moved. It was made out of a tree trunk as a bedpost. So what was Penelope and Odysseus' secret sign? Their secret sign was the bed. Let's see, where was that? Their secret. The bed. Odysseus had made it. No one else had ever seen it. All right, so then at the very end. No other man has, okay, let's see. But here and now, what sign could be so clear as this of our own bed? No other man has ever laid eyes on it. All right. You make my stiff heart know that I am yours. Now from his breast into his eyes the ache of longing mounted, and he wept at last, his dear wife, clear and faithful in his arms, longed for, as the sun-warmed earth is longed for by a swimmer spent in rough water where his ship went down under Poseidon's blows, gale winds and tons of sea. Few men can keep alive through a big surf, to crawl, clotted with brine, on kindly beaches in joy, knowing the abyss behind. And so she too rejoiced, her gaze upon her husband, her white arms around him, pressed as though forever. All right. What is Penelope compared to in these final lines? All right. So it says, his dear wife, clear and faithful in his arms, longed for, as the sun-warmed earth is longed for by a swimmer. So this is an epic simile. Spent in rough water, blah, blah, blah. So, like, this is a simile at the end. It says, what simile helps you understand the joy Odysseus feels, is going to be your question. So the simile is, Penelope is like land or a beach to a sailor whose ship goes down, and he has to swim to shore. All right. Odysseus and Penelope tell each other about all that happened to them while Odysseus was away. Then Odysseus visits his father, Laertes, and gives him the good news of his safe return. Meanwhile, the townspeople, angry about the deaths of the young suitors, gather to fight Odysseus. In the end, Athena steps in and makes peace among them all. And that is the end of the story and the end of our annotations today. So make sure you've written all that down and done your highlighting, and then when you go to answer the questions, it should be super easy. All right, that's it.